My name is Birgit Liaden. I am the founder of the Ocean Opportunity Lab, and we are a co-organizing partner of Maritime SheEO and Sandgem's amazing initiative to fuel diversity in the global maritime industry. And today we are gathered with some really amazing people from different levels and backgrounds in our industry. And we are gonna have 1.5 hours dedicated to talk about how we can fuel female entrepreneurship. Before we start and introducing the other panelists and speakers here today, I will start by introducing the Ocean Opportunity Lab and show some of the initiatives that we have going now for female entrepreneurs specifically. So I will just share my screen in 2 seconds here and get you on board. See. And we're starting the presentation of the Ocean Opportunity Lab and our mission and purpose by sharing a video with you all. So we are on a mission to empower generation cleanup. Having worked within the global maritime industry for more than 15 years, I have seen the strong need to further get a broader diversity and the new generation of engaged young people with bright new ideas, different mindsets and different backgrounds into our industry to fuel innovation and change. And we work towards an end goal where the ocean industries are completely emission-free and waste-free. We believe that we now need to find the new models for our businesses that ensures that we regenerate life and resources in the ocean, meaning that when we do our operations and business, we bring more resources and life in than what we take out. And there are amazing potentials now across all of the ocean industries, also beyond the maritime, and loads of new opportunities for the maritime industry to excel based on all the resources that are really related to the ocean. But at the same time, we have a huge challenge where life in the oceans are threatened. So we need to make sure that when we expand and build for the future, we need to do that in a balance with nature. The problem that we have taken on from TOOL is that there is a huge unleashed innovation potentials within ocean industries and the renewable sector. And we see that among the young innovators and new change makers coming in, it's difficult to find each other and the type of resources that they need to build from an idea or a concept or an early phase solution into scaling and commercializing and actually delivering new global solutions for an industry that truly needs this. So this means by now, huge potentials are being lost. And everyone working with the maritime sector knows that we need to take good care of our resources. So let's see how we have kind of reinterpreted this. So there is a huge innovator constraints, finding the right resources when we need them. And we looked into this, is there actually a resource gap or is there a hidden landscape? We landed on the latter and we saw that a navigation tool is needed. So during the past 2 years, we have built together with more than 130 international partners spanning from innovation clusters, investors, founders, accelerators, and other stakeholders passionate about entrepreneurship within the ocean industries. We have built a global ecosystem of 3 pillars and people. And when you are joining the Maritime SheEO conference, it actually takes place in one of our pillars, the TOOL Aquarium, which is a global, accessible sharing community space to organize events and meetings and expos. But what I will talk a little bit more about today is the second part, which is the TOOL Spawn. And the TOOL Spawn is the world's first interactive matchmaking and opportunity creation platform for the innovators in our industries. You can compare it with a Tinder for innovators. What we have done here is focus on how difficult it can be for an entrepreneur to find the right resources based on where they are located, who they know from before, or who they are fortunate to be introduced to or meet. So we wanted to enable borderless collaboration so that it's no longer about where you came from, which schools you went to, which part of society you grew up in, or if you're located near an existing cluster initiative for entrepreneurs. We wanted this to be more about who is it that has the best ideas and concepts out there that we need in our industry, and how can these amazing change makers and innovators find each other and also get the right help to become visible for other stakeholders that can support them with resources along the way. So this is some of the same type of capabilities that you would experience when you go on Booking or other marketplaces, just that this marketplace and connectivity space is dedicated for entrepreneurs and innovators focused on the oceans. So here you have the aquarium in its normal design. Sanjam has her own for Maritime SheEO, but here small actors with low budgets and low resources, they can have access to the same really high technology platforms that usually is limited to the strong, resourceful, powerful actors in our industry. Then our focus over these years has been to bridge the generation gap, to connect startups and the next generations with established industries and senior expertise. We are built and built by and with and for other founders. We work with borderless matchmaking and with an industry-first perspective. So this is a technology initiative that comes within our own industry rather than coming from the outside, disrupting it. We work with SDG number 17 in practice, open collaborative innovation partnerships. That is what we believe is really what it takes to create systemic change and to enable faster and better change. Part of how we work with change is that we are dedicated and burning passionately about improving the diversity of our industry. And as a female founder myself, working with a lot of other female founders, we have looked into some of the constraints that we experience per now. So we have established G-Force to fuel female entrepreneurs. G-Force was launched in September in Oslo with international participants, including Sanjam joining. Our focus is to rewrite the rules, to mobilize female founders across the oceans, renewables, and circular industries, and then bringing in the bigger stakeholders who are also keen to help us change a reality where very, very few women actually build their own companies and grow into successful entrepreneurs and then later invest in upcoming ventures. So I am now going to take you from the presentation and directly into our live platform, as I'm going to introduce you to some of the amazing female entrepreneurs that we already have in our industry, and hoping both to inspire those of you who are in the audience and also to showcase some of the ways that we can help them grow and connect. Let's see. There we go. So here you can see our global map of innovators. This today counts more than 1,300 companies around the world. And when we were going to build this, we also wanted to build it with a tech for good focus and with a very dedicated focus on what is it while we build that we can do to fuel and accelerate female entrepreneurs. So what we have done recently is that we have started compiling the first lists an overview of female entrepreneurs in the ocean and energy sectors. And now we start the calling for all female entrepreneurs and their potential supporters to join us so that we can complete the map globally of who are already out there and what are the kind of resource support that they need when building their ventures. So now we have a good list ahead, and I'm going to pull out some examples of what these amazing change makers are working on. And we will start with Eco Wave Power and Inna Braverman in Israel. So let's hear from Inna.
Hello, my name is Ina Braverman and I'm the founder and CEO of EcoWave Power. I believe that wave power, which can produce twice the amount of electricity that the world produces now, is definitely a great cause. So how does the EcoWave Power technology work? Our floaters are going up and down with the movement of the waves, and they're pushing a hydro cylinder, which transmits biodegradable fluid into land-located accumulators. In the accumulators, a pressure is being built. The higher the waves, the higher the pressure. This pressure is used to turn the hydro motor, which is turning the generator. We decided to install onshore and nearshore on existing man-made structures, such as piers, breakwaters, jetties, and other types of marine structures. When the waves are too high for the system to handle, the floaters automatically rise above the water level, and they stay in the upward position until the storm passes. Although my real passion is wave energy, I truly believe that the solution for climate change and for the world's problem is integrating all renewable energy sources. We need to use solar and wind and wave and any type of renewable energy technology in order to have a 100% renewable energy friendly world.
So that was our first amazing entrepreneur. And as you can see in our platform, we have done a listing where you can actively search for female founders and female owners, and also know more about what are their current needs. Then we will go back to the list and we will meet our next entrepreneur. So next up is Wales. Oh, sorry, the link wasn't there. The next up is Brim Explorer with Agnes Arnadottir. And let's see what Agnes is working on. And Agnes, she has earlier both won the North Shipping and Young Entrepreneur Award and the Vista Personality of the Year Award. So let's check out her whale watching shipping company.
Brim is an Old Norse word for breaking the wave, like the crust of the wave. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to break off the mainstream and to be something else. We are a hybrid ship, so we have the ability to go 100% electric, 100% diesel, or combined. When we get closer to whales or to the nature, we can switch and go 100% electric. We're actually trying to leave a smaller mark, do tourism in a more eco-friendly way with less disturbance for the nature around us.
I think this is a really special opportunity to be able to reach people and inspire them, because it's not every day that we have this kind of connection with nature, and quite often we are quite removed from the natural world, and it's hard to really feel the passion for protecting something and fighting for it if you aren't connected with it. And so the opportunity when people come here and see whale next to us and are moved by them is a great chance to reach people when they're receptive and interested, to explain to them more about the challenges faced by marine mammals and the wildlife in the ocean in general, and also to inspire them to do something different and to become more involved.
So that was Brim Explorer, the world's first hybrid, and then now later fully electric whale watching catamaran. Another amazing entrepreneur who's also very into ensuring zero emission propulsion is Chloe Sayed, who is based in France, and she is the founder of Innova Yachts. She is building a fully hydrogen fuel cell powered boat, and let's see what happened when she had visitors on board earlier this year.
It's 7 o'clock in Cannes, which for the French Riviera is quite early. And why so early? Because actually now we're witnessing a very important step for sustainable yachting. It's basically, it has never been done before that they refueled a yacht with hydrogen in a port. And so there's kind of new safety regulations, and they're pushing the boundary for those safety regulations. And that's what we're witnessing right now. So we must walk around a bit in the security, and they're all a bit nervous. So let's go and see. This is now a high security zone. So let's see. Okay, guys, come with me. Yeah, so this is the fuel nozzle for the hydrogen. This is where all the pressure goes through. And at how many bar it is normally?
350 bar.
350 bar of pressure going through this. So let's see how Chloe is actually filling up. Come a bit closer. So let's take a look. Wow, that's it. That's simple. So now we're just going out of port, and you just hear a soft noise of the electric propulsion and the water that goes away, the wake of the boat. It's amazing. And then actually suddenly you smell like, oh, there's an exhaust smell, but that's not from this boat, of course. It's just from the other boats kind of maneuvering around you. So it's very weird, because you think, oh, and then you realize, no, it's actually just nothing. It's producing water. So tell me, what's going on here? It's a normal boat with a steering wheel. You have the levers for the engine, for the acceleration, for the RPMs. And then the only difference is basically this REX H2 display that shows you the pressure of the hydrogen and things like that.
Yeah, we just have all the data here, with the hydrogen level and also the battery levels. So on this first boat, we have so many data because we collect the data. It's really important in the first one. In the next one, we're gonna have something more
user-friendly.
User-friendly.
Not like scientific as this.
It's really technologic, but it's normal for the first one.
Of course.
So you can see the level of hydrogen and the level of the battery here.
And now we're at how many percent? 97% or?
Yeah, of the batteries here.
Yeah.
And in hydrogen, we're at 44%.
Okay. It's nearly a year since we've seen each other last time, because it was in the September 2020 when you put the boat in the Yacht Club of Monaco, right? And the Prince of Monaco showed up, and it was all an exciting event. And then a lot of things happened since then. So what were your challenges up to today?
Actually, I have many challenges every day here with the Innova, but the biggest one is for refueling, but we did it. And I think that we showed that it's possible to do it, and a new generation boats are coming. And we're on the yacht right now, on the boat. It's fueled by hydrogen. We can't hear anything, and the byproduct, the exhaust, is just water. That's it. So I think it's pretty amazing, and I think I really want to say that I have so much respect for you, because this is a project also close to my heart, and we need pioneers like you pushing the boundaries, pushing the limits. So I'm honored also to be part of this
a little part of this project. So very happy that actually we're with Resorting trying to help for distribution in Switzerland. More about the maximum range, the speeds, what's going on here?
Yes. So the maximum speed is 25 knots.
Wow, 25 knots. That's impressive.
Yeah, it is. And then the range, it's really depending the speed. So in 12 knots, you know, we are full hydrogen powers.
Yeah.
So in 12 knots, we have like 10 or 12 hours range. But then at 25 knots, we have like 40 minutes range. But then the boat don't stop. You just need to go back at 12 knots, or you can stop the boat and use your fuel cell as a supercharger, you know?
Yeah, to charge the batteries.
Yeah, to charge the batteries.
Then you have the boost again.
And in an hour, you have full in battery, so and
then you can go
get
40
back,
minutes again at top speed.
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
So that was Chloe and Hinova. So we are now really hunting towards Expo 2020 in Dubai in March. We are hunting for being able to map the most complete overview of female entrepreneurs in the entire world and introducing them to our international community during the International Women's Week in Dubai. And with me today, I also have one of the entrepreneurs who have been connected with the Ocean Opportunity Lab since we started. So Liana has been both among our testing partners since the very early development stage, and also she is on the advisory board of Tool. And as you can see, her company, while it comes from the US, it's now established high up north in Norway. They are a startup going to scale up, and she has a lot of different type of needs for resources in her current phase. And she also represents a number of contributions. And we can also see which areas that are of interest to her. So now I thought that introducing Liana to you, I will stop my screen share and I will bring Liana with me on stage. And thank you for joining us again, Liana. It is amazing.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes. So can you share with us, because I mean, as I've mentioned, we have very few female entrepreneurs, both from kind of the tech side where you come from across the maritime and other ocean and renewable energy sectors. And can you share with us a little bit first just about your background and kind of your personal journey before presenting what you're actually doing now in the amazing adventure of Aquai?
Well, if I may, I've actually integrated that into my presentation. So I'm going to just, instead of telling you what you're going to hear again in my presentation, I'll share it if that's okay. And at least have some visual aids is when I tell you a bit about how I got involved with this. I may share. Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes, we see it perfectly well.
Perfectly well? Okay, so I don't need to fix anything? Okay, great. So, like all good things, Aquai came to be because of the power of one girl. And that is Emily Pietrkowski. And the power she had over her father, Simeon Pietrkowski, when she asked him to save the seas after learning about the state of our climate and our oceans. And the reason why she asked her dad to save the seas was because she really thought he could. She grew up in his lab. He is animatronic specialist, climate change specialist, roboticist. He'd already built at least a dozen 2-meter tall humanoid robots at least 20 years ago, long before human robotic interaction was an acronym. And as an inventor, she grew up with him, you know, building all these different tools, half the time, you know, stealing things out of the living room and the kitchen to make the robots from whatever trash you could find. So Simeon is an inventor. He's originally from Cape Town, South Africa. And I think he walked into a climate conference at the age of, I think, 13, and was left there devastated. And all of his inventions since then have circled around helping humanity and helping the risks, or mitigating the risk of the climate crisis. Now, I met Simeon in Israel, where I was based as a journalist. My first career before I became the CEO of Akwai was that of a reporter and an executive with the New York Times, doing stories all over the world, mostly around conflicts, and then putting, as a television executive in New York, running the largest production company, putting people like Anthony Bourdain on television, and a lot of other programming for National Geographic, Discovery, and so forth. So I was actually in Israel doing a story on the Q of Israel, and the Q meaning James Bond 007 Q, the guy who makes all the really cool gadgets. And that led me to Simeon. He was the go-to gadget guy. If you needed a solution, you would bring the problem and he would think about the solution. He's also a mechanical engineer, I should add. So it was always about finding solutions. When I met him, he was obsessing about this promise that he had given his daughter, Emily, to save the seas. And he was working on different proof of concepts about how he could do that. Long story short, Simeon and I went back to my native, the US, California, and I left media and we founded Akwai, and I joined him on that promise to save the seas. And it's been a journey ever since the end of 2014 when we founded Akwai. And it was really about, as I mentioned, the climate crisis, but in looking at the climate crisis, obviously we all know that we can't ignore our waterways as it does as it's most of our planet. And if you look at our waterways, whether it's overfishing, shipping, flooding scenarios that we are seeing more and more daily globally, algae blooms or nutrient spikes from ag runoff and riverways that cause disasters, there are almost daily disasters in our waterways. The problem is that we really need the data from those waterways in order to mitigate future risks. But the problem is that most of the tools out there with which to gather data, autonomous underwater vehicles, are usually built for the deep pockets of military or oil and gas. And so in Simeon's looking at what we needed, it was really about how do you get the information into the hands of people so that the impact is large and it's not just a few hands who are able to have that information, but across whether it's the scientific community, whether it's businesses, or whether it's organizations that also would like to monitor, even nonprofits that are doing coral reefs or MPAs, marine protective areas. How do you get them the tools that they can do their best job? And that's where the robotic fish comes in. So coming from animatronics, we looked at what systems were out there, as I already mentioned, and we knew that with the superstorms of today, we really needed to have a system that could withstand rough seas, but could also propel itself efficiently and affordably. Because remember, the whole idea is to give these tools to people who can, that in an affordable manner. And if you look at where these flags are, whether it's rivers or whether it's along coastals or inside fish cages, as we are doing here in the north of Norway, the robotic fish-like platform, which carries a payload of cameras and sensors, swims along, and it harnesses the data, which the customer can then access on a web dashboard. So it's an end-to-end solution, allowing the customer to just access without the headache. A lot of people, and I'm sure you're asking as well, why a fish? Well, as I like to say, what's in the water, right? Everything that's in the water, you don't have boxes in the water, you have, fish in the water, stingrays in the water, whales, but they all kind of have the same similar design and use the undulation of tail propulsion. So for us, we're able to use tail propulsion, which allows us to be incredibly power efficient. Plus, we're recyclable. We 3D and SLS print our units. We're maneuverable, so we can swim around the corals. We can swim along coasts. We can quickly go around debris in the case of a flooding incident. So it really is a modular system built to also immerse naturally with the habitat, unobtrusively, I should say. And when you look at what's out there, on the market now, most of the systems are incredibly expensive. And as I mentioned, usually targeting military, like Boston Engineering, or oil and gas. They have a lot of links. They have a lot of payload as well. But their costs usually range from the hundreds of thousands, if not the millions of dollars. But biomimicry, as you'll also see, is starting to take off, and it is indeed the future of robotics. So we're happy to be on the forefront of that. For us, we really have been working here in the north of Norway, where we've done some of our initial tests in fish farms, and I'll show you a video of that in a second. But the idea was, as I mentioned, to be able to have a unit that could go across industries, governments, and be applicable from everything from ports and harbors to coral reef inspections to smart water management in cities, as most of the populace lives near waterways, and we need to integrate our waters and water quality. I mean, even now here, if you look at Oslo, at the opera house, so many people swim here, but yet the monitoring of the water is still done with a couple of people going out on a boat, as opposed to having an autonomous system that looks friendly as well, and just swim along and give that data back to city officials. Here you see the port of Hamburg, which is overwhelmed with sandbank issues and stoppage from their ships because of those sandbanks, and they really need systems that can be autonomous, showing where these sandbanks are gathering to maneuver the ships coming in away from them, so that you don't have cloggage, which is millions of dollars an hour. If you look at Budapest here on the Danube, which goes through many countries, understanding the water quality and understanding where different nutrient spikes are can help then mitigate those spikes. If you could pinpoint where the highest spikes are, then you could actually put in measures around those areas, which are usually caused from ag runoff, and get those stakeholders and those players who are perpetrating those runoffs to perhaps change some of their practices. I mentioned flooding scenarios. So for us, I come from conflict reporting, disaster reporting. I was in the hole in 9/11. I was in Haiti in 2012 and 2010. For us, it was really about what happens when entire communities are wiped out because of a flooding scenario. And it's usually those communities that take a long time to come back. So what we wanted to do was be able to go to those communities, deploy on a moment's notice, which we've tested. Sent 7 people onto an island, 3D printed about 8 robots, and put them in the water in 4 weeks. So what we want to do is be able to go to those locations, put together the units with the local community, empower them so that they're also able to monitor their waterways, and moving forward can also not only educate but also employ by remaining there, working with the robots, making certain that their waterways are healthy. As I mentioned, in the north of Norway, we are in salmon farms, sustainable salmon farms. I should point out some of the good guys who are really truly doing sustainable work. They supply Whole Foods and Michelin chefs in the US. And we're also starting now to work with kelp farms as well for carbon and sequestering. We did, our units swam for 8 months, 24/7 in the Arctic Circle. We figured, okay, if we're going to go global, it's really important to test out the units first and foremost in an environment that is rugged. And so that's exactly what we did. And here's what we did on the fish farm. And I'll share this with you. so that was one unit in Kvare, which, as I mentioned, are where we've been working. They're also our partners and investors in our company, and they really are truly cutting edge. They've won, accolades such as world-changing ideas. It's a 3-generation farm, and their mandate is really to produce salmon in an utmost sustainable fashion. And as a result, they've become industry leaders globally. So other farms that are now trying to become more sustainable are looking to Kvare. They're early adapters to technology. Obviously, they're, embraced our technology and truly are industry leaders. So for us, the logic was, if you can go to a farm that others are learning from, then that would help us, obviously, with our distribution and marketing and sales potentials. Our accolades are as such. I'm happy to say here on this particular group that I was named 20 Women Driving the Future of Climate Tech earlier this year. Also robotics last year. And just recently, we were a finalist in the Ocean Impact Pitch Fest. I want to thank Innovation Norway for their support on our work as we go forward here in Norway as well. Our journey, as I mentioned, we are, or I guess just say Birgit mentioned, we are originally a California company. We opened a subsidiary here at the end of 2019. These are just, I don't know if you can see, these are kind of small, but our first fish really did look like Nemo. And then over the course of time, we've perfected to what this one is now. And I have another slide that'll give you a better visual of that, which is completely untethered. It is this one here. It's completely untethered and has a payload of 16 sensors, 3 cameras. It has a side scanner here, IMU, DVL, 3, 4, and 5G capability for transmitting data. We dock it on a docking station, and we use trickle charge as well. It's fully souped up and loaded, untethered, I might add. And as you can also see, we're adhering to many of the SDGs, which is part of our mandate. Our growth strategy is to include some of these, and our partners and current supporters are here. Tool, as you can see, being there as well, and some companies and other projects that we're involved with. Mostly with upcoming projects include doing subsurface coastal plastic inspection with the European Space Agency, where we're looking for plastic subsurface off the coast, and then we're relaying to the satellites where the location of those plastics are so that they can be picked up from under the sea, from under the surface, below the surface, to mitigate any microplastics. So that's one project that I'm really excited about. We've also done some grant writing with Ghost Network where we would go out and look for ghost nets, which I'm sure you all have seen those videos on YouTube where the turtles are getting stuck in all the fishing gear. So this would allow us to use our computer vision and detect where ghost nets are, again, so that they could be picked up and mitigate the harm that it does to existing habitat. Other projects include coral reefs monitoring for different companies. Our team is very international, actually, from everywhere from Portugal to Cape Town, as I mentioned, to India. Kind of what I like to call a bunch of oddballs who all come together, driven by the mission and bring their specialty, and as a group really push the boundaries both of technology, but also business models. Our business model is we do not sell the unit, we lease it. We lease the platform, and you get the data on a subscription basis, much the same as you would, let's say, your cable. You need your cable box, and you sign up for whichever data, whether it's HBO or not. But here you get the platform. We believe our platform is the best in terms of precision harnessing, because we're able to get up close to the source without scaring it away. And based on that, we're able to deliver the data which is much more affordable. Our patents are in mechanics and design, full patents, which has allowed us to keep the units affordable by the fact that we don't have a lot of links or screws. And so again, it's about delivering the easiest, most affordable, most reliable data to the customers. These are some of our partners so far who've embraced our technology and our team and have financially supported or advised us, including, since this is a female event, Arlen Hamilton of Backstage Capital, Ad Astra, which is a female fund out of San Diego, as well as, you know, Adam Draper and some of the other individuals listed here. If you want to learn more about us, this is the press that you can Google and find out, watch some podcasts, read some articles on us in various entities and publications. And just to wrap it up again, here's my email if you'd like to reach out. And one more look at our super cool, which we're just completing at the moment. So I'm really, really proud of this latest unit. And yeah, so that's Acquai, that's our history. And yeah, give me an email and hope to hear from you.
Thank you so much for that amazing journey through your life and the really exciting work that you're doing. And now we have with us Shankar Pillai, who is Head of Innovation and Change from Hafnia, and we have Kathy Hogan, who is the Executive Director at Oceans Advances from Canada. And Kathy, you've been up like 5 a.m. this morning to join us for the Maritime SheEO setup. And I just wanted now you've heard kind of what we're doing from tool side to really mobilize and make visible amazing female founders. And you've heard Liana's story as well. And now we have had a lot of focus on the one part, mobilizing and uniting female founders. But also, of course, the other important part of that is to unite the type of stakeholders and actors that represent key resources and partners for the female founders, and look at what are the key initiatives that are being taken around the world to fuel female entrepreneurship. So I thought that it would be great now to hear from you guys, Kathy and Shankar, what you have been working on, the companies you work for, and specifically then the initiatives that you are involved in to help mobilize the female entrepreneurship part. And would you like to go first, Shankar?
Yeah, for sure. I was about to say ladies first, but then, you know, it's kind of in this forum that probably doesn't make much sense. But just reflecting back to what Lady was saying, I think that story sort of, you know, stuck with me as well in terms of, you know, your entire journey and what you're doing in terms of providing the right tools to those who actually need those tools. And I think that sort of reflects a lot, because that's something that we've been trying to do at our end here at Hafnia as well. So for those who are probably not very familiar, Hafnia is actually an energy transportation company. So we actually move oil, for that matter, from one place to another place. That's what we do as a business. We also have a pool model, and we all have our own vessels, as well as we actually, you know, manage third-party vessels as well, right? So that being said, you know, I think shipping as an industry traditionally is not looked upon favorably by, you know, those who are, let's say, just graduating out of college these days, because there's this whole connotation that it's probably not a very green industry to be in. It's probably not, you know, the most exciting place to be in as well, which to those, you know, who are not very familiar with this, you could be really surprised. It is actually a very interesting place to be. I'm an actual proof of that, because I'm actually also not from the shipping industry. I just moved into this industry almost a year and a half ago. With that being said, one of the commitments that we made, I think, as a company was to make sure that we really push the gender diversity agenda in shipping. And, you know, a lot of the companies say they want to do it. Everyone signs a charter to have more women in shipping. But what does that really mean? So we actually sat down and we thought about it a lot. And we said we wanted to do something where we are actually creating solutions for challenges faced by women in the industry. And what are these solutions? What do they look like? So again, when we were brainstorming through this process, we realized that we're probably not the right people to think about what are the problems faced by women in the industry. Why don't we actually ask the women who are in the industry what are the problems and the challenges that they're facing? And then let's be responsible for finding the right solutions to these problems and actually trying and solving them. So that's where it all sort of started. And I think this was sort of late 2020 when we kicked off an event, as we call a Women in Maritime Innovation Challenge. And this was sort of to, again, give the right tools to female employees who are part of any organization in the maritime industry to then step forward and come out and actually participate in a challenge where they can come up with ideas on how to solve some of the challenges faced by women. And then there's no winning prize. The winning prize in this case is that you actually get a chance to work with us to create new ventures, to actually solve those problems by yourself. And that's the prize. So we are taking you along the journey from the beginning till the end, as much as time you can spare, and also giving you the chance to see firsthand what it actually takes to create a startup from scratch, but without the risk of actually quitting your job. So that was kind of the premise behind it. And so we kicked off the program late last year, very pleasantly surprised by the amount of response that we got. And we had 2 partners along with it. So I'm working at Hafnia, and we have the BW Group as a big partner. We also had Shell, who was the big partner for this event. So essentially, we received close to, I think, 56 applications to take part in the program, where we actually shortlisted the ideas that we submitted to 7 or 8, with whom we ran a 3-day, very focused accelerator program, trying to get deeper into what are some of the challenges faced by women and what kind of solutions can we come up with to solve it. And when I say solutions, again, this is all digital solutions, because that was the only caveat, because we wanted it to be something that's scalable across the industry and not just something that can be used by Hafnia or Shell. So that was the only sort of condition behind it. There were some very interesting sort of challenges that surfaced, and I think as we collect more and more data, this keeps on coming in more and more. Number one was obviously the fact that there was still a lot of harassment and bullying going on in the industry, especially if you're a seafarer who's actually sailing. Second challenge is career progression and career growth, especially for certain roles within the shipping industry. It's still not as good as compared to some of their male counterparts. And the last part, this was pre-COVID to a certain extent, was also the lack of flexibility in terms of those who are coming back from maternity leaves or other responsibilities. But that's still, again, not up to the par. And these were some of the ideas where we had a lot of feedback from the participants. And at the end, we had a judging panel who decided to vote on which ideas do they want to take forward. And the one idea that I think unanimously everyone voted was to actually create an anti-harassment platform for women and mostly all employees really, who's actually on the sailing side in the shipping industry. And this was again end 2020, beginning 2021, and we sort of went about saying, great, I mean, that's fantastic. Is there any platform out there which is actually doing this in the maritime industry today? The answer was no. There was actually no one doing this. And then we said, all right, then we'll do this. We'll do this by actually creating this venture. But then, we would do it with collaboration with a startup who already has a product which is sort of relatable to this particular product, but may not be an exact 100% match. So we'll fund that project, or we'll create a particular product that actually solves this problem. And the winning team, who's actually led by Isa, who's actually the part of the Turkish organization for seafarers, and also Clary, who's actually leading this initiative from Shell's side. So those two were kind of driving the whole project, while we were giving the support and making sure the resources are available for you to actually go ahead and create this venture. So, it was a lot of learnings along the way. It's easier said than done. And those who have created startups or ventures, you actually know the process and the pain and the heartaches that you have to go through. But we kicked this off in late Jan 2021, and we managed to launch what we call a minimum viable product by April of 2021. And there we went on a few rounds of testing, and we finally launched C Code, that's what it's called, on August of 2021. And from the time till we launched it till now, again, we have been really surprised by the amount of stories and the amount of information that we have actually received. Now, the next step in our process is to make sure that we're collecting a lot of this data, and we are creating a platform where seafarers are free to share what they are actually facing on a day-to-day basis, and they can actually go there and publish it on a place where everyone can read it by themselves, without creating any names or taking any names, and keep the entire platform really anonymous. So it's sort of like the equivalent of Glassdoor, with the only difference that you don't take out names of companies or organizations there. And we have received a lot of support on it. And again, like I said, the next step in the process is to kind of use C Code as an aggregator of collecting data, and not just let everyone come to C Code, but it could be on any platform. It could be on Vista, it could be on ICS, it could be on the company's website, where you use this platform as an aggregator to collect the data, get the data crunched in the back end, and actually let an organization such as maybe iSwan, who's responsible for a lot of these actions that's being taken against these initiatives, against these complaints that's being reported, to be part of it and sort of go ahead with it. And that's sort of the direction that we're going at. Again, all these things are, as you know, easier said than done. It takes time. That was our biggest learning. The second biggest learning that we got was that reaching seafarers is very complicated, because you have so many nationalities. There's not one single channel that everyone uses. For instance, if you're thinking about seafarers from the Asian continent, they use Facebook quite a lot, whereas someone else might be using Instagram. No one uses LinkedIn, and here we were trying to publish all this information on LinkedIn. That's like such a corporate mindset of doing these things, right? So it was a very segmented, audience to reach, and we finally managed to engage a lot of them by having, let's say, as an example, a Facebook page in Tagalog for Filipino seafarers, where they feel a lot more easier in sharing the information. So again, collecting the data from there and using C Code as an aggregator to then pump all this data in one place. And yeah, it's going well, and hopefully we'll have some good news towards the end of the year and early next year about more platforms and more collaborators coming on board. And yes, if anyone is interested in knowing more, I'm sorry I don't have a slide at the moment, but it's ccode.org. You can actually just go there and check out most of the information, or just drop me a note, and we're happy to share more. There's also been a lot of demand for running a second cycle of this program, because there's just so many ideas that came in, and I believe there's so many initiatives that still needs to be addressed. We only have resources to do so much, so we need to think bigger, and we need to figure out a way to actually scale such initiatives going forward in the future. And yeah, I think as much as one organization or two organizations want to do this, I think something like this would only be scalable if more organizations step forward and actually take a more forceful approach to coming up with solutions which are able to solve some of the most complex problems, I feel, in general, no matter which industry you're in. So yeah, that's sort of what's going on at our end. I'll not take too much time.
It's so interesting, and I know Ice so well, and I think she's also speaking in another session in this program with Maritime SheEO today. And we're also partnering up to see how we can also help support with finding the resource gaps that are needed for Ice and you guys to really accelerate also some of these really good initiatives coming out. Then we have Kathy, all the way over from Canada. Kathy, you represent an entire cluster. So, you represent so many different kind of actors that we talked about before. And can you share with us what are the key initiatives that you are doing from your end and how you operate in your role?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And in my case, good morning, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here today and to have the opportunity to talk about some of the initiatives at Oceans Advance itself, which is the Newfoundland Ocean Technology Cluster. We are located on the east coast of Canada. Basically, we are a rock in the middle of the Atlantic, where the Labrador Current meets the Gulf Stream, and we spend a lot of time in fog and rain, but it's a beautiful island and we love it here. And having lived on a rock for 500 plus years, our people have become extremely innovative in regards to what we can create in our living from the sea and so on. So Oceans Advance has several programs that we're currently working with. One is called Young Women in Ocean Industries, and that's a program funded by the federal government of Canada. And basically we take students from oceans programs from different provinces throughout Atlantic Canada, and we bring them to an oceans conference, which has both an academic side and a trade show side, because we want to show these students what the opportunities are on both sides and how research can often turn into entrepreneurship and so on. So we support that program, and we also support a program whereby we take students from the Atlantic region and we bring them to the University of Ghent summer school. That gives them some master's and PhD students. That gives them some international exposure, networking opportunities. Being a cluster and having been in the business for 18 years, I have learned that it really is all about networking, who we know. And one thing that COVID has given us perhaps is even a better international outreach. I'm still a firm believer that we need the one-on-one, we need to see each other, but Zoom and Microsoft Teams and so on have certainly added greatly to our ability to reach out. So the piece that I'd like to speak to today is the Canadian Women in Ocean Industries Leadership Initiative. And this idea was spawned in 2019 with a friend of mine who lives in central Canada, nowhere near the ocean. Basically, I'll tell the truth, the more wine I drank, the smarter we all became. And, you know, the better we got at this. So we were talking about women in my city and how all of the support agencies are run by women. Strong, smart women. So the Newfoundland cluster, the Canadian Oceans Cluster, the Offshore Industry Association, the Aerospace Industry Association, the university, the leading startup community or organization, deputy ministers, the list just went on. But when I looked around my own membership, I had 3 companies that were owned and led by women just in our province. And I thought, that's pretty sad, actually. So again, the more wine we drank, the more we thought it would be a good idea that, to quote my friend, you need to do something about that, not just in your own province, but in Canada as a whole. So ocean industries in Canada is worth approximately $32 billion. You know, and it contributes 1.6 of the percentage of the country's gross domestic product. It'll take a diverse and inclusive talent base to help us grow this sector. Only 16% of all Canadian businesses are owned or led by women. And studies have shown, McKinsey has done reports for the Canadian government that shows that advancing women's economic empowerment in the economy can add up to $150 billion in GDP by 2026. And the research also shows that gender and cultural diversity, along with a society founded on inclusion and belonging, are proven multipliers to innovation, corporate performance, profitability, and economic growth. So that's enough about the whole stats and so on that we have. The plan for Canadian Women in Ocean Industries Leaderships, our acronym is COIL, is to bring together the nation as a whole. So we're huge geographically, not so big, you know, population wise compared to certain countries. So, you know, 30 million people across a vast land, and what I like to call ocean to ocean. So We're surrounded by water on the east, water on the west, and water on the north. We have tremendous assets, but women, for some reason, have never really been encouraged to be in the ocean sector. And we intend on changing that. Our plan is to do consultations across the country to develop a long-term strategic work and action plan. So not just, another study or another plan that will sit on a shelf. At this point, we have 51 partners that are participating from across the country. Many of them have different areas of expertise. And we recognized early in the process that Oceans Advance, and we're a small organization, there's literally myself and 3 staff, and 2 of them are devoted to talent pipeline development in high schools. We needed to partner with organizations that already had that talent and were maybe doing the work, but not necessarily in oceans, or we didn't have a good solid national plan to pull everyone together. So the work plan, action plan will, that consultation will develop projects, ideas, and hopefully identification of funding sources. And we will farm those projects out to people that are current, or organizations that are currently already doing something in that area. So there are women in resources as an example, because oftentimes people look, and we use the broad term ocean technology, but in all honesty, it's not just about scientists and researchers and so on. It's about developing entrepreneurs. It's about electricians, and it's about all these other technicians that in the trade sector that contribute as well. We need communications people, we need strong business development people, and so on. And we've developed a couple of programs leading up to the development of the plan, which the consultations will start in January of this year. So we are a fairly young, fairly new initiative, but we host an online, we call it Coffee with Coil. And basically that event is hosted approximately every 6 weeks. And we feature women leaders in our country. And we're about to have our first international speaker early in the spring, but they talk about their success. I think the thing that we've learned the most is that none of us who have been in the ocean sector, and some of us have been around a lot longer than the others, we never end up where we aren't currently now, or we never end up where we started. That these women, these strong, powerful, resourceful women who have started companies, some of them 20, 25, 30 years ago, when again, women were not seen as being an equal or a strong partner in the ocean, started these companies, had many hurdles, but they tell their story. And the challenges for women, as one of them says, which she turned into an opportunity, but the challenges for women are different than they are for men. So having foreign direct investment, or having VC to support their businesses, women are normally still challenged with raising families, trying to complete educations, sometimes caring for, and we're finding this now in my age group, caring for elderly parents, and trying to balance all of that with a thriving career and running a company and so on. And those challenges, we need to find and put resources behind those challenges and ensure that we're all on a level playing ground. In my province, and there are a lot of 50% of our population is in small rural communities. And in our case, our people were fishermen. Nobody ever called them fisher people or fisher persons. Back then, they were fishermen. And when we started our original initiative to engage young women, certainly on the high school level, all high school students, but young women in particular, the biggest challenges we have were from mothers and dads and oftentimes teachers and counselors, career advisors, many of whom were women. And their attitude, and rightly so, because they didn't know any different, it's become an education piece, was, you don't want to do ocean technology. That's fishing. You can't, you don't want to work on a boat. Your grandfather fished. Your uncle died at sea. All the reasons why they shouldn't be in the sector. And we are trying to change that mindset with our mentorships and internship programs, and what we're doing with educating not only the children, but also their parents and teachers and so on. So we have a number of initiatives that are supporting that. In July of 2022, we are organizing a conference which will bring together all of the contributors to our action work plan. It will bring together our partners who will take on the responsibilities for administering the programs that have been identified by women. And it will be a celebration of women who are currently very successful. And we're hoping for a large student component as well, although it's in July. And that will hopefully engage and entice young people to consider a career in oceans, preferably in the entrepreneurship, because that's what will grow the economy and so on. But if they start off in the research side, they'll create tremendous, hopefully, products and services that will be brought forward and utilized by all of us that live by the sea and on the sea. So yeah, that's what COIL is doing. So I just have a little piece here. If I might share my screen for a moment. And no, I don't see it. Sorry, I was going to put up my contact. Oh, yes, I am. Here I am. There we go. So there's my contact information. Our website will be up and running by mid-December, and in that will be our consultation process, which will be largely Canadian, of course, but there will also be information regarding the whole. Sorry, I'm trying to unshare my screen here, so you don't have. Wait, here we go. Get rid of that. Alrighty, sorry about that. That will be about bringing together the international community. We've had some great interest from Portugal. We have some strong connects into the UK, Ireland in particular, a big kinship between my province and Ireland. We have a bilateral agreement with Portugal. Next year is the 70th anniversary. So we are doing some work with the World Ocean Council as a partner as well. I am a member of the Blue Tech Cluster Alliance, which is the international cluster of clusters, 10 clusters in 9 countries. There is a Ocean Technology Alliance, which is a Canadian cluster of clusters. So we're quite fortunate to have some strong partnerships, and we're even more fortunate to have some really strong women who are going to tell their story of how they started out in a tough to sort of break into sector, and how they've succeeded. So anyone wants information, reach out. Happy to answer any questions, and certainly happy to connect and partner with not only within my own group in Newfoundland, but regionally and nationally. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And I think you brought up a really important issue to the low level of female entrepreneurs, because we know that in order to start a company, first you have to have worked within some industry identifying a problem that you really want to take on. Then it does require resources. Like having some starting capital requires that you already have made some choices early on, saved up, or in other ways have the access to resources like Shanker's company represent, with terms of kind of co-supporting new entrepreneurs who actually are in full-time jobs. But So we know, and we see even in Europe, we see that for the Nordic region, the percentage of female founders and their access to capital has actually decreased over the past years rather than increasing. It's awful. And we see that in general, that the access to funding is more difficult. On the other parts, we see that female entrepreneurs tends to be asked different type of questions when they are presenting or in dialogue with potential partners, customers, or investors. We see that there are a lot of barriers, and you brought up some of them. But what would you say, like, are the, if you choose top 3 barriers preventing women from founding their own company? I would like to send that out and hear from both Liana and Shankar and Kathy. Liana, would you start, please?
Well, you're absolutely right in saying that we are asked questions, and it's much more difficult to close capital. I think there's also, in our case, we're also a deep tech company, so there's that aspect. And I think also there is the barrier to age. So I think if you see there are quite a few and more entrepreneurs are in their 40s. And in their 40s as males, they're getting backed. Women in their 40s are not getting backed. It's usually the women in their 20s, late 20s, early 30s that are getting backed. So age, obviously we talk about gender. I think also another difficulty is fundamentally from a deep tech perspective is, can you carry it through? Which is a much different scenario than if you're, building an app or just a software. When you have that hardware element, there's also that. So, for our company, we have maybe even more or added difficulties because of, the niche, the deep tech, the water space. Most people don't understand the water space, or they say, well, it's hardware, we don't touch, or, there's the issue of being in a wiser female, I should say.
Yeah. And then we also know that we can't solve all of the global ocean-related challenges just with apps and software. We actually need the hardware and the deep tech to get to where we need to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Shankar, what would you point out? Because I mean, you also before you started in Hafnia, you also have an entrepreneurial background in your end. How do you see this on the top 3 barriers seen from your side?
Yeah, I mean, I cannot say about, a lot of the challenges that's faced by women, because obviously, my perspective on that would be, I'm on the other side of this equation. But I think something, just an observation that I've actually seen, and I think it sometimes worries me because, there are 2 founders on the table, and if you're talking to some VCs, there's some chance that, the VCs would actually naturally assume that the male founder is more technologically capable. And I really don't understand why that's the case, because we have seen it a couple of times where we are part of some forums or venture capital forums, startup pitching competitions where, and then the male founder would be, oh, I'm actually not the technology person, it's a female founder. And I think there's a bias that exists. And this could be a male or a female person asking this question again. So that it actually makes it even more challenging in certain ways where I think there's a perception that, for some reason, the tech behind it, the software behind it, the engineering behind it has to be done by a male person. I don't know why or where that emerges from, and it's probably cultural and it's probably, been there for ages. But I think that's something that needs to be addressed. I believe you would see a lot more of this going forward as more and more female founders join these global forums and sort of start pitching to investors and start raising capital. Is there anything that we can do about it? I think definitely educating people on that understanding that women are perhaps better at engineering than men are, especially in an industry such as shipping, where you can imagine it's on the engineering side it's like what 99% are male, so it's always a little bit of a challenge getting that message through. But yeah, I think that in my observations comes up as perhaps the most important thing that needs addressing.
Yeah. What about you, Kathy, leaning into the other inputs that we've heard now? How do you perceive this from your side?
Well, you know, I think a number of the barriers have been addressed, certainly. In Canada, we're rather fortunate, I think, that what I would call the lay of the land has started to change. So the federal government, we're fortunate to have a prime minister who is, and I'll say this, he's pretty to look at besides, but you know, the Prime Minister of Canada is, he really is forward thinking from a lot of our past leadership, and 50% of his cabinet are women. He's had some challenges and they've been played out in the media and so on. But you know, we're fortunate, I think, in that he has put his money where his mouth is. There are quite a few programs, etc., that are being developed and or have been developed for women specifically. I think the biggest challenge is people don't look at oceans and automatically think that's a good sector for women to be in. And, you know, there are things that when I was developing the idea of Coil Venture, you know, in the beginning, one of my contacts said when I was building the partnerships and the network, because again, it's all about partnerships and networks in particular, someone said to me, well, you should talk to the Canada Standards Council. And I thought, what could the Canada Standards Council possibly have to say that might relate to oceans? Again, so some of our barriers are our own mindset. But when I spoke to them, the lady that I had a conversation with said to me, do you know one of the biggest problems that we have with Canadian CSC? And I said, what? She said, the survival equipment for women to work either offshore on fishing boats is not built for women. It's built on average for whatever the average height and weight is of men. And, you know, we're just not built for that. And she said, that's a huge challenge. And we've had, you know, we've lost women at sea because their gear just didn't fit and they just couldn't survive. And as I said, we're on a rock in the middle of the Atlantic. So it's off our shores are pretty difficult. So I think the whole concept of women in oceans does not come to people easily. And then there is the, you know, the venture capital and the FDI piece. So foreign direct investment, we've maybe gotten a little better. As I said, government is putting money behind programs. So I think from Canada's perspective, we are starting to build, but it's a long road. One thing that does impress me is I'm now seeing other women step up to support startups. And that has and is going to make a huge difference in women's ability to start companies and women's ability to maintain that and women's ability to find a balance. Because again, you know, the majority of us have families. Startups are often younger women who have small children. Or as Leanne said, they are, you know, they're in their 40s. So now they have college children. And there is a practical side to starting businesses, that we have families that we need to support and mortgages to pay and so on. The same challenge I know as everybody does in business. But sometimes when you're the breadwinner, that's difficult to take a job. If I'm a research scientist with the National Research Council in Canada, and I have this great idea that's been sitting on a shelf forever, and to give that up with either small children or college age children, and then take that plunge into trying to start a business and the money and time and energy that takes.
I couldn't agree more. And I think both you and I, Leanna, we have been through that, you know, single mom entrepreneur part of our journey where we try to balance that in parallel. Sanjam, who's the initiator of Maritime SheEO, she also has, you know, the same daily challenges of running her own main corporation, the Maritime SheEO initiative that is truly her passion, and then also mixing with partner and family life. So what we have been looking into there is kind of that when you look at these kind of key challenges, they're quite generic, and that's interesting to look at, whether you are, whether you have female founders that are based in India or somewhere in Asia, whether it's in the Middle East, Europe, or Americas. There are quite common generic aspects that these female founders bring in to me. So you would think that is quite different based on where you are or which industry segment you're in, but it's the same things that keep coming up. And then I thought, oh my God, these are so, this is just stupid. We have to do something more about this. And we can't just leave it for like one founder or one initiative to work on this. We actually have to collectively unite our forces and basically act on SDG 17, share the type of good models and initiatives that we have, and identify some of the key pain points, and actually then bring them out to the industry. You say that, okay, so we know that we want to bring more female entrepreneurs in, and we do also know, and I think that's something that very much reflects from the tool scope. It connects ocean, circular models, and renewables. It's all about creating a good future. If we are going to have the future that we want to have and create systemic change where there is also different kind of balance to be able to combine work, life, career, entrepreneurship, and family, then we actually have to redesign the system so that they work for us. That's a role that we need to take on. But then we have to be able to then mobilize all of the good forces out there in a much more efficient and borderless manner, because there's so many actors, individuals, people that are sitting here experiencing this same kind of pain or kind of bottlenecks altogether. So, we should have all the opportunity to really kind of crack these and build better solutions. So, Liana, we have been working together for quite a while, and you had also that extended experience of kind of then also moving your company into a whole new market and moving operations to Norway.